Hi, do power fantasies influence your D&D game? I want to talk about the heroic tradition as it relates to gaming. The lore of the genre is steeped in what a lot of folks could call toxic masculinity. Hi, I'm Storns Cook, and welcome to Tabletop Tip of the Day. So, what do I mean by power fantasy? For me, I cut my teeth in the fantasy genre in Conan, Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, Elric and Corum, Flash Gordon, Tarzan. I wanted to be Aragorn, not Frodo. Strong, stoic, bold, adventurous men. But this is a segment on gaming, so why are we starting with the genre literature? These predominantly male figures heavily influenced the creators of D&D back in the day, just like they influenced me. Uh, my exploration of all of this started before my exploration of playing role-playing games and video games. I read my first Savage Sword of Conan in 1975. I read my first Conan novel in 76. I was playing D&D by 77. After that, I was reading as much fantasy genre stuff I could get my hands on and to bring it back to the gaming table. So that's where that conversation was really going on. And I think there are some really good ideas and talking and deconstruction going on about fantasy gaming happening right now, and the need to be more inclusive and all that. I think that's great. And looking at my examples of these men, they're violent, blood-soaked people. I mean, they're just leaping in the fray and taking and dispatching countless lives across their pages. Little is talked about the consequences of their violence. Not a tear is shed about some subhuman brute that was taken out on the way to the hero's goal. Elric kind of being the exception. There are huge consequences to his violence, and it is only his supernatural sword and gifts that allow him to even venture into the world that the other giants of fantastic adventure tread. But are these men to be admired? Do we adopt them into D&D and other fantasy role-playing games too easily? Does an RPG about Conan as king with crippling PTSD need to happen to balance the scales? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's a game people want to play. I'm not sure. But hold on. Before we condemn all the heroic figures of yesteryear, let's look a little bit closer. There's something that all these men had in common that really, really appealed to me at a young age. And here's where I get kind of personal, and without getting too much into it, and I don't want, sympathy or anything like that. This is just what happened. I was abused by my stepfather, physically and verbally. I was a skinny, small kid. I was a victim of toxic masculinity, as my mother and my sister were as well. But the heroes I was reading about, these men had honor. They protected the vulnerable. They rescued princesses. They took the fight to evil. They took on burdens that would crush others. My stepfather was not honorable. I was not strong. I was a child. But here in these pages, I found that discussion, and that discussion worked its way to my gaming table time and time again. Not directly and not overtly. It wasn't something I was able to verbalize easily until I was much, much older. You can ask my fellow gamers because we've had this conversation many times. But it was in the way I played heroic characters. I wanted strength. I wanted to protect. This was my fantasy. D&D and Champions, which is a superhero role-playing game, and other games really let me explore what it was to be heroic. Now I'm 55, hopefully a bit wiser. I see the traps that stoicism can lay for people, for men, and I think it's great that men can and should cry, and we talk about our feelings. I mean, that's kind of what I'm doing right now. Sheesh, maybe to your dismay, but I think a discussion about honor is important. Not blind honor. That's fanaticism, and I don't have time for that. But standing up for what is right is important. And as an artist, I work in heroic tropes all day long. Men are just a bit bigger and stronger looking. Women too. They're handsome, they're beautiful, they're sexy. Rarely do I draw a fat warrior that is heroic. That is presented in a heroic light. That I think really has to change. I do think representation really, really matters. I think there's a lot of paths to heroism. Heroism. I think there needs to be more inclusion, a lot more inclusion, both in gender and in cultural ways than, muscle bound white dudes. But muscle bound white dudes might have saved my life. It certainly gave me purpose, and I get to draw their descendants every day, and for that I'm thankful. So, Does that tradition impact your gaming table? I don't know. That's for you to answer. It certainly has impacted mine. Thank you for listening. I hope I gave you something to think about for your games. This is meant to keep the conversational ball about heroism and violence and the repercussions of all that rolling. So, please post your thoughts in the comment section below, or next or wherever it is, you know. Um, if you found any of this useful, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Crom doesn't care, but it does help me out a lot. Until next time, keep on keeping on.